He's not here. She has a situation at home, so she's not going to be here. Well, and then I said, you know what? Let me give Ryan a call from Heavenly Hills Homestead. See if he would step on in. He goes, yes, definitely. I'll definitely step on in. This is something. This is so awesome. I'm
Yes,
so
it
happy that
is.
you kind of stepped on in the last second, and we should get a pretty good crowd here tonight. Tonight we have Ken Somerville from It's All About the Biology. So, as we always talked about on Grow Big TV, if you have a healthy soil, you have a healthy plant. You have a healthy plant, you have a healthy you. And if you have a healthy you have a healthy world.
That's right.
And we got to stop feeding the plant, feed the soil, feed the soil.
Yes.
And that's what we're about. So people are rolling on in. I'm going to show common ground when people are rolling in. Welcome in everybody. Let me see who just came on in. Rick is here. Magic Acres. Jay Dixon. Welcome, Jay Dixon. We have some of the best mods on YouTube. Thank you guys for being who you are, the best. Jamie's Country Living is here, built on a rock homestead. Let's see who's it's God's Desire for Me. Denise as well. Welcome in. Silly Lily. Welcome in. So let me show common ground. We're going to get this thing rolling here today. We're all going to learn a lot. And Magic Acres, before we get started, this show is all about growing. All right. Some things I get disagree about, but I need to listen. We all need to listen to things, even if we did disagree about things. So our last live on Grow Big T, we had somebody talk about GMOs. Am I for GMOs? Definitely not. I don't want them. I don't
Right.
want them near me or anything. But I want to listen.
Absolutely.
Because science is important to listen to. Doesn't matter I have to agree to it, but it's important to listen. Okay, so we're going to play Common Ground. Here we go, guys. Welcome in. Welcome in, everybody.
What I'm about to tell you is a matter of life and death. If the soil dies, we die.
The facts have been proven. Roundup does cause cancer.
If you burrow deeply enough, there is a pipeline of money from the pesticide industry into those universities. They're getting the kind of science that money can buy.
Nature is the mother of us all. And if mama ain't happy, we're
But there's a way to save our precious soils. It's called regeneration.
Regeneration is not just restoring the land to the state that we found it at, but actually making it better.
We have added over 96 tons of carbon per acre into our soil. Can we mitigate climate change? Absolutely.
We're going to check the underwear in the regenerative versus the conventional soybean field and see if we can tell a difference between the microbial activity.
We've eliminated insecticides, pesticides, herbicides. We are saving upwards of $400 an acre. It works out to be about $2 million a year in savings. That is serious cash.
I forgot my suit. I feel like I'm underdressed. But if you are the people who can make a change, well, it's high time to finally get regenerative agriculture. Let's prioritize the farmer. Out here in the fields, I found my meals.
It's a connection to the land. It's a connection to those that came before us and those that are going to come after us.
Sally, take my hand. We can change everything. There's hope.
I said this letter is a warning, but it's also a promise.
So I'm gonna fight like hell to save your future, my children.
Because I love you.
Let's get together before we get much older.
So that's what it's about, guys. It's about going old school. What did God give us? What has been on Earth forever without any kind of chemicals or anything? It's always there for us. Gotta make things simple. I grew up next to a farm. The guy lived to 104 years old. Cow manure. Use cow manure. Put it in the garden after the year is done. Keeping it simple.
That's right.
Because you want those micros in there. So let's see who just came on in. There's 27 people that just came in and starting to climb. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Welcome in Kathleen Moran. Rick is here. Welcome in Rick from Australia. The Stock Explorer is here. The Stock Explorer is an awesome lady. One of the best supporters out there. Mike's Chaotic Gardening. Rebel Canners is here. Serena has the joke of the day. She had the greatest joke last week, by the way. I mean, this Sunday. That was really funny.
Yeah, it was. She actually did another one, too. She did a second one about the potato. Did you see that one?
You know what? She tells jokes all the time. I have to go back and listen, and it's like, oh, that's pretty funny.
They are. They're very funny.
Welcome in, Watt Life. Welcome in. And if I missed anybody, there's Ginger Ninja. And thank you for all the members. I really appreciate you guys. You really keep this going. We have a lot of people on Twitter tonight. There's going to be a lot of people from LinkedIn. Welcome to the channel. Feel free to open up, ask questions, whatever you guys want. Feel free to share each other out. Scotty Timmons, welcome in. Awesome. So today's guest is Ken Somerville. Ken is an executive producer and host of its own about the biology. It's all about the biology on YouTube. He delves into topics related to soil health, organic gardening, and living soil. Here's a quote from Ken: "However you grow, whatever you grow, just grow." Right? That's what's important. We want people to grow. From small vegetable gardens to big ag to small cannabis grows. All about the biology covers it all. And that's how we started with cannabis. We'll talk a little bit about that too. All about the biology covers it all and much more in the channel. When you understand that no cell can divide without biology, you can conclude that it's truly all about the biology. So let's welcome in Ken Somerville. Welcome in, Ken.
Hey.
Fantastic day, everybody. And I really appreciate your having me on. It's a great honor to be here.
Well, with your channel, you had some of the best growers. I look at them as growers and soil people, soil experts on your channel. And that's how I started watching your channel. I'm like, who's this guy? What's going on? And then I'm like, let me go see if he's on LinkedIn. Oh, he's on LinkedIn. That means he's important. I originally thought in my head, if you're on LinkedIn, you got something going for you. And then I'm like, okay, let me know more about the show. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is somebody I really want to follow, and you know what you're talking about, and somebody we could all learn from. Welcome in, Indiana Backyard Gardener, Life in a Piedmont. Welcome in. So, did you grow up gardening, farming? Did you have your family grow?
Yeah, basically we were like everybody else back when I was a kid, and when we first started seeing the preservatives come into our foods, we found out I was actually allergic to them. So because of that, we started growing like an acre large garden. We started hunting for our own meat instead of buying everything. That way I wasn't sick at all. And I learned back then as a child just how important nutrition is and food is, and how food can be the nutrition that we need for our bodies to be healthy. My father almost died, and my mother brought him back with, the right nutrition and the right food to make him healthy. And he's still going today, going strong, happy and healthy.
Well, like I said before, my start was my neighbor. I mean, the guy lived 104. I was one of the last people he asked for before he died, because my father always gave me the best advice. He goes, if somebody talks to you about something, make sure you're just as important to them. So look in their eye, you listen to them, because they don't have to talk to you.
Yeah.
If my neighbor will come on over, all Polish guy with the Polish accent, and they'll talk about gardening to me. So I went up to garden, and they also made this special iced tea. They brew for 24 hours. I have no idea. We had water. We drank out of a hose. That's what we did back then, you know? But man, he had this greatest iced tea. And I'm like, man, I can go up there garden and get to some of this iced tea. Yes.
Yeah, that was your payment, you know. It was come in and pull weeds, boy, and here, I'll give you this, not a problem.
Right.
And so next to our house, well, it was the farm, then there was a ShopRite. So they had stairs that used to get loose, and they used to go in a main avenue and go into the ShopRite parking lot. And my father like, you're not loud outside. The stairs are loose. The stairs are loose.
That's funny.
But we had everything right there for us for working on biology. And so I would grow up, I would bring vegetables to school, which was really cool. And I got really into it when I used to bring hot peppers and things to I coached high school athletics for 16 years. And all of a sudden I'd be go, oh man, this is gonna be funny. I'm gonna bring some peppers in there, see if they see if they could take this. And all of a sudden I'll give them out, you know.
Cruelty to children, oh my goodness.
Especially
I love it.
Especially when the water fountains only go this high. Oh, the water fountain's not, you know, it's the high school. That water fountain's not working. The water fountain's not working. Oh, no.
All them young bucks full of testosterone, seeing these little chili peppers, like, oh, yeah, coach, I can eat that, man, you know, and take a bite. I can't take it. That's funny. That's funny.
You know, some things, you know, some things don't change. I drive Uber, too, and I give out vegetables on Uber rides. Well, pretty much try to get a tip. So I give out cucumbers. You know, I grow the Chinese long ones. The zucchinis, I grow them like bad sometimes because I don't have time to get out there, come back. I'm like, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I fed the whole gym one year. It was pretty funny. And I give away hot peppers. And so I don't give the hot peppers away into the end of the ride because I know there's no way they're going to be able to take it. And I warn them like you won't believe. Warn. You know, guys, listen, don't eat this here. You know, you're going to need milk. You're going to need everything. This is the hottest thing you ever had. And you know, college kid's a college kid. One of them has it. Oh, what the heck is that? Do you guys want any more for the ride? I mean, for the party you're going to?
So I got a real quick funny story about a hot pepper. Because every year I grow like 80 different varieties or more of super hots, you know, because I'm just fascinated by all the different colors and all the different, you know, tastes and stuff. So anything that's, you know, I'll say super hot, but it's really not. So, you know, most super hots are, you know, within that 1 million plus, right? And everything else is kind of like hot pepperish. All right. But anyhow, I grow these black beauties, or not black beauties, black pearl, which is a tiny little old round marble sized pepper. Beautiful plant, more ornamental than anything, but I like eating them. They're really good. So anyhow, my buddy comes over and he's like, hey, can I have a few of these? And I'm like, sure. What are you going to do with them? Because I know you're not going to eat them, you know, because he don't like hot stuff. He's like, I'm going to take them to work. And I'm like, you might. He's like, how hot are they? Like 10,000 Scoville. And I was like, the kids eat them. I was like, so they're not that bad because my kids will eat anything, right? I mean, but they've been doing it since they were young. So anyhow, he takes them to work. He goes to it. He's always playing practical jokes on his boss, right? Now he's worked at Walmart for 25 years at this point. Okay. He's like one of the top, he's like the manager over automotive. So anyhow, he's in there with the store manager and he's like, hey, try this out, you know? And he's like, oh, I don't want to eat that. That's probably something hot you're going to give me or whatever. He's like, oh, it's a Granny Smith apple. And he's like, ain't no Granny Smith apple, you know? And anyhow, long story short, the store manager bites into it and he starts cussing him and, oh, it's so hot and blah, 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 throws a fit on him. My buddy literally gets fired from Walmart for 25 years over one of my hot peppers. Yeah. Like, just because he played a practical joke on him. And I try to tell him, like, look, you ain't want to fool with them peppers, man. So yeah, peppers can get people in trouble, y'all.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I just want to say a shout out to my co-host on Gardens the Untold Story, Andy Lopez, who I see in the chat. Amazing guy, and it has been organic since '72.
Wow.
And we do a show on Wednesday nights. He's down in Malibu. He takes care of. He's an arborist. He takes care of Cher's trees. Okay, so yeah, he knows what he's doing in gardening and really growing soil, because that's what we're here to do is talk about the soil and how to make the soil so alive that your plants are healthy. Because
right.
Without healthy plants, you get bugs because the bugs are there to break them down.
Right. But, yeah. So tell me something. I had a old fella tell me that the reason why bugs attack the plants is because like we can look at the plant and we think, oh, it's a beautiful, healthy plant. These bugs are attacking it. And the old timer told me the reason why the bugs are attacking it is because they already sense the disease or something within that plant. And so they're attacking it, not because it's healthy, but because it's already dying and sending a signal out, and they're attacking it to take it out completely. And that's why you have some bugs on one plant, but not on the other, because that plant has it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is very correct. That your healthy plant will actually be almost invisible to most bugs. It's not at the right frequency, the vibration, the color, etc., for the bug to actually see it. The bug will literally fly by a healthy plant looking for a plant that isn't healthy. And yes, you can see a plant and go, oh, that's a beautiful, healthy plant. But when you see bugs, there's a systemic problem with that plant, because the bug is there to break that plant back down for the next generation, because it knows it's not healthy. If it's healthy, then you don't have the bug, unless you got like locusts or something like that.
Right.
But generally speaking, no, if your plant is truly healthy, then it's not going to be susceptible to the bugs. You look at aphids and say spider mites, they actually take their tongue, or I can't remember the exact term, but they poke it through the cell structure of the plant to get into the phloem and drink the phloem. And if there's so many cells in a healthy plant that they can't put their tongue through to get down into that to feed, they're not going to stick around on that plant. They're going to go and look for a plant that isn't as healthy, doesn't have so much cell structure in the leaf, so that they can feed. So it's the automatic response of Mother Nature to break down anything that isn't good for the human body or the animal body. It's only good to be broken down and have the components stripped back out at a molecular level, because it breaks it down to the molecules to feed back to the biology in the new plant, which has the capability of building that healthy cell.
Okay. That's very interesting.
Well, I mean, it all starts with the rhizome too, right? You got your root hairs and everything like that. So you have all that life going through there to handle. Nobody wants to be near that. It's like, everything kind of reaches out, and I love that. Healthy roots, healthy life, and there you go.
Well, exactly. Once you have your soil really biologically alive with a massive diversity of the different forms of biology, whether that's the bacteria, whether that's fungal hyphae, you need the complete diversity that exists in Mother Nature. So the deeper you go in a soil structure, you have different levels of biology. You have biology that can exist without oxygen, and you have biology that needs the oxygen. that's the biology that's going to be generally in your first 6 to 8 inches is your aerobic, and anaerobic is going to be at the lower levels where it's not getting oxygen. But if you don't have that bacteria that lives down there, you lose out on what's called the predator prey, because the higher levels of biology need a food source, and a lot of that food source is the bacteria that lives in that lower structure. Then you have biology that moves into both. It can exist in an oxygenated environment and an unoxygenated environment. And if you don't have the complete levels of biology, then you can have a collapse in your soil of the biology. And I've had it happen to me personally, where I had a plant that was beautiful, green, lush when I went to bed, and woke up in the morning and it was just hanging, drooping, dead. And that was a collapse of the biology that just totally took out our plant. And that's the same thing that we're looking in the future of humanity, because that's what's happening in our soil structures now, especially in commercial agriculture, where they don't have diversity of plant, let alone diversity of biology or very much life in the soil to support plant growth.
I just had a ladybug in here, which was pretty cool. I wanted to show it. I'm like, look at that ladybug. Yes.
So I got a quick question too. What is those anaerobic bacterias or fungi that are in those 8 inches down? What are they, and how do you get them?
What are they? There's such a vast amount of different biology. Like Elaine Ingham basically says, we know 5%. We can identify 5%, and we know what they do. 95% of the biology that exists there, we don't really understand what it's doing, how it's doing it, but they are finding different biology that, say protozoa, that will actually change the job that it's doing depending on what is necessary for the biology to grow the plant. So if it's gaining, say, calcium, the next round it may be going after magnesium. It's the biology is so many laborers in growing your plant. It's like if you're adding biology, and that was the other part of the question, you're doing, say, compost is one of the main keys if it's a live compost. And that's one of the big problems that people have, whether it's a store-bought compost or whether it's their home compost, is they don't really understand, the diversity that should be there. They're overcooking it a lot of the times, which when you raise it up to those higher temperatures to kill your bacteria, the viruses, etc., that exist, you need to bring that back down to a temperature where it can have the lower levels of biology that aren't killed by the heat. But you need to give that time to have the biology come back in and really proliferate in your compost. And that doesn't generally happen. The only way to know for a fact that you have a lot of life in your compost is to use a microscope. Now, you can do compost, you can do extracts from your compost. So instead of actually putting your compost onto your soil, you can strip the biology off that compost simply by making a tea from it and an extract, using that extract at, say, a 1 to 10 ratio with straight water, and proliferate the biology using that on your plant as a foliar, on your soil as a drench. And you're getting a lot more out of a small amount of compost than putting the compost directly on. Now, you do need mulch because you never want to leave soil bare. But the other ways that you can get the biology other than compost is things like worm castings. And you can do an extract from them as well. But then there's another level to worm casting, which is, I call it vermicast, which you take your finished compost, you feed that to the worms, which takes the whole thing to another level. Because you have to understand, a worm doesn't have a stomach like most animals do. It's literally like a straw. It brings it in the one end, mixes it with the biology that it has in its gut. It only eats a very small amount of the biology that's flowing through, and then the worm castings or the worm shit, excuse my French, comes out the other end. I actually take that, I put it in gel caps, and I take that probably once a month to get the biology back in my stomach. And you can do what's called a medical grade compost, and you can fix a lot of illnesses that people have because of the lack of biology they have in their bodies. But to get back to the different ways, you have the Johnson Sioux bioreactor, which they're putting everything in, doing a compost. It's a static compost. So a lot of the times they're using just straight leaves, and they're leaving it sit for a year. They're maintaining a 70% moisture content. It's not allowed to freeze. But at the end, you have almost a potter's clay is what I liken it to. And in that, you can strip that, spray that on a field, a huge crop field, and totally get the biology back in where it needs to be. When I say, and you mentioned it, Joe, it's all about the biology, and it starts with that cell and the S phase. So a cell, before RNA, before DNA, before anything else, the cell has to create a replication of itself. It has to divide, and it needs the structure or the building blocks to do that. Now, at the S phase, they say you need two things. You need the biological and the building blocks. So the building blocks, if you consider how those are devised in our own bodies, it's what we consume. And then our gut biome breaks that down to the molecular level, puts it into our system, runs it through our entire body, moves those components to the cells that are needing to divide for the building blocks. Then, of course, you need the construction crew, like say a house, to put those components together as the outside cell structure. The internal cell structure, you've got millions and millions of molecules of water. You've got calcium, magnesium, boron, cobalt, etc., etc. That's all coming from the food we eat in the soil. It comes from sand, silt, clay, and organic material. That's why we never want to leave bare soil. We want to put a mulch layer as an organic layer down so the biology can live there, break that down, because in that way it's much easier for it to break down out of another plant or organic material that's partially broken down. It's like you eating a kimchi or anything that's fermented. It's partly broken down. Biology's already had a go at it. So it's easier for our biology to break it down to the smaller components we can use. And it's the same in our soil systems. It's much easier to mine a leaf that's fallen on the ground and is being broken down than it is to attach itself to a particle of sand and mine that sand particle for the components in there to give to the biology in the plant. So you've got your compost, you've got your extracts, a worm extract from worm castings, you've got the Johnson Sioux bioreactor, you've got a lot of different products that people are coming out with, like something like Fish Brew has a lot of the biological components from the aquatic side, but you can get a lot of that same stuff if you have a creek or a slough on your property. You can go get a bucket of that water, and you can take that and use that to water your plants and get that aquatic biology, which is anaerobic because it's not breathing oxygen, so it can exist deeper in your soil structure and give you those levels of biology that you need. I think that should cover your question.
Well, I got more if Joe don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to take over though. I don't want to.
After you answer that question, there's a question in the here.
Well, go ahead. Okay. Go ahead and let him answer that one.
Now, the roly-polies, they're after decaying matter, but the cosmic cultivators, they have like tons of them. They go in our fruits, they go everything. What could be done with that? Is it time or is it?
It really depends on the situation. The story I'll relate is from a cannabis grower who finished harvesting, and he had an indoor grow, and he closed up his grow because he was going on holidays for a month. Okay, so he went on holidays, he came back, and he walked back into his grow, and it was covered, tens of thousands of roly-polies everywhere. Now, this is going back a lot of years where we didn't have YouTube explaining things to us. You couldn't talk about cannabis on YouTube. It was all in the forums. So he closed the door. He went to the forums and started checking and asking people, what do I do with these roly-polies, After about a week to 10 days, he went back in to see what was going on, and he discovered spiders. White spiders everywhere. It was his wife wouldn't even go into the grow because they were everywhere, dropping on his hat, etc. Right? So nature, because he didn't have these white spiders before, nature actually went, okay, these eat roly-polies, so I'm going to develop these in this situation to eat the roly-polies. And after, I think it was about a month and a half of just basically letting nature take its course, he had a balance of a very small amount of roly-polies, a very small amount of the spiders, but nature had taken care of the problem. Other than that, if you've got an indoor grow and you're worried about roly-polies, or an outdoor grow, I would actually suggest getting in touch with somebody that does I want to say other pests, but there's companies that you can buy ladybugs from that will eat different things. I would suggest looking in that direction and finding out what is consuming the roly-polies that you can bring into your environment and release to take care of that problem a lot quicker. But in nature will find the balance, because it really is all about balance. Nature wants to be, going down that center track and not be way over here or way over there in the soil and above the soil, if that explains the question.
Now, this is G Mama Grows, like beneficial nematodes.
There you go. And actually, if you have hive beetles in your beehives and you put beneficial nematodes around the outside of your hives, because the bug has to actually go through the next cycle of life outside of the hive in the soil to go from pupa into the bug, and then it'll fly back up into the hive. The nematodes will literally eat those pupa, and you won't have the bugs going back into the hive. So that's another benefit of nematodes.
Yes, absolutely. And I seen somebody had said they had toads, and I love toads in my garden. The more I can have, the better off I am, because they'll eat every daggone thing, and I love it. So, so my question was, you said maybe going and getting creek water, or river water or whatever. It's kind of a two-parter here. One is, are you worried about what is in that water, pollution, etc.? Or are we outweighing it, the beneficials that are in it that's good for our soil outweigh what pollution may be in the water? And then the second part is if you have a well does the well have those same beneficial life forms in there?
To start with the first part, you have to consider where your water is coming from, whether it's well water, whether it's city water, whether it's out of a slough or a creek. But if you have a healthy amount of plants already growing at the edge, then understand that they're not going to be growing there if the water's that bad, right?
Right.
So I know when I was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years old, we went out in school, took the microscopes out, went out and to the slough hole, or that's how we call a pond,
Right.
and we put that under the microscope and saw the life and everything. That's what you want. You want that life. And when you add that life in, it's going to do two things. It's going to either be food for the biology that already exists, which is always good because it's more components coming in to the structure, or that biology is just going to slip into the niche that it needs to be in your soil to have the proper predator prey. So what was the second half of the question again?
So it was does well water have
right? So the study that I saw, and it's actually from Alberta, Canada, was they drilled a water well down into a deep aquifer. I believe it was over 2,000 feet deep. So down there, you would expect that there would be no oxygen for the anaerobic biology to exist. What they found is the biology that was existing there was creating oxygen. So it was taking the molecules of H2O, breaking out the oxygen, creating dissolved oxygen in that water 2,000 feet deep. And we had aerobic biology that was living in that structure. So it's not literally dead water, but you have to consider it can be very old water. They call it, and not antique water. There's a term that they use for very ancient water that can never be replaced.
Okay.
But when you're drawing that water up from your well, depending on what you're growing, if you're just growing a garden, then you can just spray it on your garden. You're going to get the benefits of biology that does exist that deep. It's not going to be as good or as plentiful as taking it out of, say, your creek or your river on your property, but you are going to get a certain amount of biology. You're also going to get a more diverse amount of the components that the plants and the soil structure needs, because you consider that underground, if it's an underground river, it's peeling off molecules as it's flowing through the structure. The biology is there breaking down whatever it has available to it, whether it's out of a rock, a sandstone. It is eating those components, breaking them down into more smaller molecules, not to grow a plant, but to grow other biology. Okay. And that's one of the keys is you consider a plant. I look at a plant as a house for the biology. That cell needs to have the house built before it can say, I'm going to be, coded for this, in the plant, whether it's taking photons of light, processing those photons, or another thing that's being done inside the plant. It's all being brought together at that S phase, the base level of life, to be built into whatever it needs to be built. And that's where you have your RNA and DNA. I call it lipstick and mascara. And if you've ever renovated a house, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the full structure has to be built before you can have that granite countertop, before you can have carpet or hardwood. You have to build the structure. But the plant, everybody says the plant's in control. And to a certain extent, I would agree with that. But in the bulk, not a damn chance. That's like you saying, okay, I'm going to build a heart cell today.
Right.
Plants say, I'm going to build a cell on a leaf. Hell no. It's the biology that goes, oh, we need more heart cells. We need those components. We need the biology to come and be built to build healthy heart cells. Same in your plant. If you're building for, say, a lettuce leaf, okay, it needs those components, and it's going to get those components from whatever you're adding to that soil for, whether it's the biological you're spraying it on. I don't know if you guys are into Korean natural farming at all and doing ferments, but you can do a lot of that type of things to get calcium, phosphorus, etc., and do foliar feeding. But really, it's that base structure and biology that we need to focus on. The more biology you can pack into that soil structure, the more aggregation you get. The more aggregation you get, the more water retention your soil has, the more components that the soil is going to have available to the biology that's going to build that plant. And that's really how life is, whether it's plant, animal, human. It all comes down to that S phase of cell development, having both the biology and the building blocks available.
Makes sense.
So Jimmy Pickles just came on in.
Yeah.
Jimmy Pickles is a superstar. He's on the Hulu show Super Hot. So he has a world's second hottest pepper. So welcome in Jimmy Pickles. Jimmy's a good guy. Cracks me up.
Yeah.
I'm burning. And he loves pierogies. I love my pierogies too.
Pierogies are good, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I love them things.
I like the super hots on the pierogies. So there's Jay Dixon with the links. Our mods are the best. They're just constantly putting information out there, exactly what you guys are talking. There's the Korean national farming. So for those people that don't know what Korean national farming is, can you elaborate?
Sure. It was, it's the term they're using now because that's what, has come out in the last 20 years. And it's Master Cho from Korea, who has looked at the history in his country of how they were farming decades and decades ago. It's Korean natural farming is just natural farming. It's taking the components from other plants, breaking them down to feed back into the structure. So you can do water soluble calcium, and it's as simple as taking eggshells, cooking them to a nice light brown, which actually, with the heating process, actually helps to break the chemical bonds on the cell structure. Then you give that into an apple cider vinegar, or a vinegar that has the mother culture. And then the biology from that mother culture goes and it attacks the calcium that's inside of the eggshell, breaks that calcium out, makes it bioavailable for your plants. Okay. And I drink it myself because it makes it bioavailable for myself as well. Then you can do calcium phosphate, which is basically taking charred bone and using vinegar again, and the biology breaks out the calcium and phosphorus from the bones, makes it what's the term I'm looking for? It floats it in the water. There's a specific term. It's not clicking in right now.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then there's other things that you can do. You can take any plant, any green plant, and mix it with brown sugar, And what happens is the brown sugar, osmotic pressure, it literally draws through the cell structure of the plant, everything that's in that plant. And then you can take that, it makes it a really syrupy liquid. You add that to water and you can add that back into your structure. Now, I know people hate weeds, but weeds really are the medics of our soil, of Mother Nature. Your soil structure, when it has been, disturbed, Mother Nature never likes to have, bare soil. She wants something growing there, because without the roots in the soil and the plant, converting the sunlight and feeding that energy into the soil structure, you lose biology. She knows without that biology, there's death. There's nothing there. So she automatically wants to put something there. So when you clear your soil or rototill, etc., your weed seeds are going to be the ones that are generally going to pop. And that's Mother Nature looking at what's in your soil structure, both for materials that it can use to build with, so boron, calcium, etc., and the biological. What most people don't understand is on a seed, there's biology on the outside of that seed, and then there's biology on the inside of that seed. And that's what the mother plant put into that seed. And that is enough to grow a seed to what's called the cotyledon stage. Okay, so the first leaf, that is when your plant is actually the most nutrient dense with both biology and the components that the plant's ever going to have. So when the seed pops, when Mother Nature goes, okay, we're missing, say, calcium, okay, and she goes, okay, what gives calcium into the soil structure? Oh, well, that's a dandelion. So all of a sudden, a dandelion seed is going to sprout because it has the right components to put back in and heal the soil. That's why weeds are the medics of our soil, because they put what's necessary back in. Their job is to grow and then to pass on, to be put back into the soil structure to give the next plants that do grow there the availability of the calcium that their bodies draw up. And in all of your apothecaries where you can go and get plant medicine, whether that's milk thistle, etc., it's in those components, those weeds, as we call them, that heal us when we consume them, but they're there to heal the soil so that the soil has enough life and the components to grow healthy plants for us to consume, to get those components and healthy biology in our bodies to make us healthy. That's why the bugs come in if the plant's not healthy, to break it down into its component parts, put it back in the soil to grow a healthy plant next year.
So I got a question, if I can, real quick.
Sure.
Let's say our soil is 100% balanced. We got a soil test. We've amended it. We know it's 100% balanced to whatever specifications that the soil test said per, say, 1,000 square foot. Would those same seeds still pop? Would we still have the need for weed seeds to pop?
I would say Mother Nature is going to make that choice for you. And, I can do a soil test and it can tell me that, yes, I have so much boron, I have so much calcium, I have so much nitrogen, etc. But Mother Nature is going to say, yeah, but you're missing this, and this is growing from this plant. So the potential of still getting those types of plants is there. And if you are, my friend, look at them and go, okay, that's what is my soil is lacking in, is what's going to be broken down from that plant when I cut it down and put it back into my soil system. And that's one of the beauties of something like Korean natural farming, is you can take those weeds from your 1,000 square foot patch and you can use those in a fermentation and draw that out, draw the components out and the biology out, put it back into the soil system. So there is the potential to still have that. And if you do, pay attention to it, because they're the medics trying to fix your soil, even though we think that it's 100% balanced and good. Mother Nature knows a lot better than we do what the hell's going on in that soil structure.
I get a ton of purslane
mm-hmm.
every year without fail. I'm talking, and I could sell it by the pound. I grow so much of it, right? I mean, there won't be another weed, you know, and I didn't know it was a weed. I thought it was a food, which it is a food for a lot of people. But whenever I, you know, started learning about it, a lot of people consider it a weed, the purslane, you know, be a weed. And I was like, I don't know where this is coming from, because I didn't plant it and I don't see it growing anywhere else. But in, you know, and so I was very, very dumbfounded as to why I kept growing purslane, and I've never grown it before. I've never planted it before. It just comes up out of nowhere, right? Every year I get it. So do you know what purslane might convert to, that I'm being, you know, that Mother Nature's saying, hey, you know, I need, you're going to have to need a ton of purslane because your soil needs it, you know, for some reason, because it literally grows like a cover crop, and I will grow it out in front of my pumpkin patch, out ahead of the pumpkin. And then as the pumpkin grows and covers, I'll peel it back away, you know, and just leave it for a cover crop until the pumpkin plant covers the entire patch.
Well, I like what Andy Lopez said, iron. Now, I don't know about purslane. Andy does. So he's basically saying that you have an iron deficiency if that's coming up.
Cool. I'll definitely address that then, because it's crazy the amount that I get.
Wow.
Yeah. And you can take those, do the extract. You can take those and just put them in a huge barrel of water, cover it, because it'll end up stinking because it's going to go anaerobic.
Right.
But leave it there for 6 to 8 months. Let it percolate, let it break down, and use that as a soil soak.
Okay.
And you will probably see next year you'll have a lot less, because you're putting the component that it's trying to put into your soil back into your soil. Now, you're growing pumpkins, you're growing huge pumpkins. Look at what is necessary to grow that pumpkin. You're pulling that out, you're taking the pumpkin away.
Right.
It's not being put back in. So you need to want to make sure that you've got those components specific to a pumpkin always in excess in your soil structure.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense, you know, because they pull a lot out of the soil, and I do mean a lot.
Oh yeah. and that's
really,
why you feed them milk.
Yeah. And they pull it out really, really fast too. Like, people wouldn't believe. I can be, you know, right now I can be completely balanced. And as soon as the plant reaches 12 foot and I have a pumpkin just this big, I've already, you know, about 30% of my balance has dropped. And then I do a tissue test when the pumpkin's, you know, 400 or 500 pounds, and I've done, you know, went 20% more, right? So I'm about 50% of what I put in. And that's with continuous feeding, foliar feeding, drenching. So you can only imagine how much it's sucking out of that soil every year.
Yeah. Now, if you took that pumpkin and you did your weigh in and all of that, and you could bring that back to your farm,
I feed it to the animals, and then I put that back into the patch.
And that's perfect, because the biology in the animal is breaking it down, and its manure is being able to go back into your soil structure that much easier, and is used that much easier the next year because it's already broken down.
Awesome.
So, question: weeds put in water is a semi-permanent bag, soak in water for garden, or throw away? So I'm not exactly 100% sure if you're just saying, you know, once I've used that up, put it in my garden. Yes, I would definitely, because you're only going to ever get a small amount. You're not going to get the massive amount out of it. that you are when you're using the water from the soaking. So put that back into your soil structure. The more organic material that you put on top, right? As long as it's not going anaerobic, so the grass will compact and you'll get that slime. Okay, you don't want to have too much of that slime. Part of that slime is good. It's biofilm. It's being broken down, and that can be used. You don't want to overdo it, because just like anything, it's all about the balance, right? If you've got, too much calcium, then you have a problem with phosphorus. If you have too much phosphorus, you have a problem with calcium. But you need the two together for the phosphorus to be drawn up properly into your plant. You need the calcium. It's like if you're taking calcium in the human body, you need magnesium for it to bond to be able to draw into your cell structure. It's just like I drink reverse osmosis water. So I'm stripping everything out of the water. So I have no parts per million in that water. There's no calcium in it. There's nothing in it. I take salt, a good sea salt, right? Not a table salt, not iodized. It has to be non-iodized. And I put a pinch in my water, because in that salt, I'm actually getting magnesium, calcium, all these different components back into that water. That's where if you're growing hydroponically, you're checking your parts per million, because you're in your feed. You don't want to go over a certain amount of nutrition going to that plant, because you can burn your plant. That's where it comes into balance and understanding what your plant needs at the different cycles of life. In the vegetative state for your pumpkin, it needs a different component when it's first growing the plant structure than it needs when it's growing the fruit. So you want to make sure that you understand, when you need to add the components as a foliar or a soil drench to benefit the pumpkin in the greatest possible way for that life cycle of the plant.
Absolutely.
So I want to show I want to show you a pic here. 1 second. It's just a soil food web pic.
Sure.
There we go.
Yep.
So can you talk a little bit about the soil food web? Because it's basically what we're all talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
But some people might not know too much. And so just this kind of puts everything together.
Yeah. So basically, if you start at the very bottom, it's the biology, the microbiology that exists, that starts the whole process, whether that's a seed, the biology inside of that seed. So if you take the plant and we'll take just a corn plant, it spermolates when it pops open, and it shoots out that beginning root. It's also shooting out the biology that's going to grow the plant. So everything starts there, and it slowly starts working up. And as you move up in the soil food web, it's a greater combination of cells. So in a root hair, there's so many cells developed in that root hair. When you come above the soil, then you're developing different cells for the plant. So a worm has to have those cells too. A bird has to have those cells again. More cells, the greater, the larger the animal. The construct of cells makes up the entire soil food web, all starting with a single cell and growing up into that rat, into that bird, into that plant, into that human. Everything starts from a single cell and cell division. So your soil food web is the constant flow of cells being born, built, growing more and more cells to grow whatever it is supposed to, whether that's a mouse or an eagle or an elephant. And then when that animal or species perishes, it's supposed to be broken down by the cells of its own body. So you've all seen an animal that gets hit on the highway, it's in the ditch, it bloats. That's the cells inside of its own body. Once life stops, instead of creating cells, that biology flips to breaking the cells back down. And that's how the cycle works. Everything comes from the biology and the cell structure. So it's really, when you look at it that way, all life that you see in that soil food web starts with the biology we can't even see into everything that we see around us every single day, whether that's your plants, your animals, your kids, your pets. So that's how the soil food web is meant to cycle in nature, and it's a continuous cycle in all aspects.
So I see something here that I'd kind of like to touch on real quick and kind of get you to explain. Humic and fulvic acid. I have noticed a tremendous difference after having used humic and fulvic acids for the past 2 to 3 years now. Can you explain what those acids are, what they do for people who might not know?
Basically, and we actually just had the creator of BioAg, Dr. Oh my God, he's gonna kill me. Bob Faust or Robert Faust on this last Monday. So yesterday on the Soil Matters, he would be the best guy that you could watch. And he actually did explain this, but basically it's organic material. Okay. So you can get humic and fulvic acid from your compost. It's automatically broken down into humus, which is your organic material. The fulvic is the next level or the next extraction level of a compost, or it's created from lenodite, which is created from lignin. And it's a lot of the lenodite is from the oxygenated level of coal seams that, as soon as it's exposed to oxygen and starts to oxidate, it starts to break down into a humic form. You can get that in your compost. You can get that from just straight leaf mulch, because that's what Mother Nature is doing now. The components are broken down and easily digested by the biology that needs those components to build your plant structures. So your fulvic acid, if you took your compost and you wash it, you're going to get a lot of humic acid. If you take that, wash substance and you pressurize it, you put it in a press, you'll get a honey gold liquid that comes out of it. And that's your fulvic acid. Okay. So by adding those into your soil structure, your what's the term, smoothing it out. Oh man, I'm having a brain fart on that one. But you're basically able to, or your biology is able to use those components in two ways. It's able to build more biology, so more of a workforce, and then it's be able to break those components down to build your plant structure through the development of the cells. It's just a much finer broken down material for it to use. It's like if I gave you a spruce tree 100 feet tall and 10 feet wide and said, okay, here, go build a house. It's going to take you a while to break that tree down into the components necessary to build your house. Right. Where if it's coming from the mill, it's already 2x4s, it's so much easier to use. That's how we can look at humic and fulvic acids. And you can get those from a lot of different areas. Like I know that Leighton Morrison, he was getting tailings that Dr. Faust process was using was the leftovers, and he was using it and seeing amazing results. Now they've taken that now and they're actually made another product out of it. But even your mine tailings, can have that humic and fulvic acid in them, and you can put that onto your soil surface and get those benefits from it. But if you really want to know, I would suggest watching yesterday's Soil Matters show with Dr. Bob Faust. He's been doing this for decades and have developed these products, calling them biostimulants.
Right.
Because they're stimulating the biology to grow more biology and to be able to use those components in the cells of the plants.
That's awesome.
Hope you guys are really enjoying this. I mean, there's so much information. It's awesome. I love this.
Well, he gave a brain dump yesterday because he's getting up there, and I know after the show we were talking and he says, yeah, I got to come back on. I got so much more I want to say before, I can't say it. But,
right.
There's so much that we're learning that science is just scratching the surface of, and we're really starting to see it. It's just like, what's the guy, Terrence Howard, the actor. He's also a physicist and a lot of other things. But if you look at how he describes things on the structure level of just the periodic table of elements, it is like a DNA strand. And when you break down the different elements, in the weight wise, it becomes a half lot. So if you have, 3 components, it becomes 6 components. 6 components becomes 9 components. And you can strip the molecules off of that cell structure in a circular methodology that he shows. And if you think of when you're breaking down anything, or the biology is breaking it down out of sand and you're trying to get calcium, well, that sand particle has so many different components inside of it. And you can actually, if you go to any agronomy book, in the first chapter, you'll see a sand survey that they did decades ago globally, and they list the different components that are in the sands that are on our planet. And it's selenium, it's all these different components put together in the sand, and your biology has to break that out. So if we can make it easier for the biology to break that out, and that a lot of the humic acids, etc., because a lot of that is broken out using substances like that. But I know that a lot of people go, oh, well, you need, amino acids and you need all of this stuff. And you do, but consider, where does that come from, guys? Okay. Who brings those components, those molecules together to make that substance? It isn't found just naturally everywhere. It's the biology that gathers all that and puts it together to make an exudate that your plant is putting out into the soil structure, and bringing back up 90% of that exudates with other components and bringing it up. And consider this: if you have a river and you're transporting goods up and down the river, it's a lot easier and quicker, less energy expended than, putting it on a wagon with a couple of horses and drawing it, beside the river. That's one of the things that our plants are doing, is they're releasing a liquid, then they're bringing that liquid back into themselves. It's a much easier flow than if they're trying to do it in any other way.
So I want to show everybody both of your guys' YouTube page before I forget. The mod's been sharing them the whole time. But
and thank you, Jane, very much.
Yes, thank y'all.
So this is Heavenly Hills Homestead. This is Ryan's page, Heavenly Hills Homestead. So And I love the tomato plant with your daughter. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, that's my little buddy. She man, if I could have a football team of her, I would absolutely love it. You know?
Okay, in Canada it'd be hockey team, okay?
Yeah, there you I'm telling you know, the boys are not nearly as interested as she is, right? I mean, she will get out there and she wants to get dirty. She wants to learn. And I'm going to teach her. As long as she's willing to stay there right there by me, I am going to enjoy it, because one day dad ain't going to be so cool and she ain't going to want to hang out with me, right? And so I'm going to enjoy it while I can. And and I absolutely love it. Love it, love it, love it.
Ryan, can I play it? Because I think it's super cute.
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
going to play this right now. Okay, ready? Here we go.
All right, guys. Time to transplant some tomatoes. Let's do it. So what you're going to need is permanent ink marker. You need foam cups, like these ones right here. Super cheap, 97 cents. You get 50 cups. We get several bags of these. Get a meat skewer stick like this one right here. Get your cups. Get your cup standing up like that right there, and shove it all the way through. Just like so. And do it to all the cups. So you got a hole in the bottom to let some moisture out. You got your soil over here in a wheelbarrow. Take some Azos, Mycos, and Versity. Mix it all in. Find your trays with whatever there are on the tag. Berries, crazy cherries. Mark that many cups with berry crazy cherries on it. And then fill your cups up and transplant them.
Okay, you guys are going to love this. You guys are going to love this.
Okay, Care Bear, show them at home how to do this.
First, you take a little plant.
Yep.
Then you take it, you put it in the thing.
In the biologics.
Yep.
Cover it up good. Stem too. Good job. Yep, that's good. That's good. Yep. Is that too much dirt?
Yeah, probably a little bit too much. So make sure that it's that good.
Yep.
And want to make sure that it's right in the center.
Right.
The middle.
Yep.
Then you start filling it up.
Getting them pushed off the center there. There you go. Good job. Good job.
Then you start packing it down a little bit.
Yep.
Then
Good job.
just I want to do this on video.
There you go. Good job, Care Bear.
I think that's adorable.
She's so sweet.
Yeah, he's my buddy. That's my buddy.
You'll remember that for the rest of your life. It's
Absolutely.
right there for her. So when she comes back, when she gets married, you got to show her that.
That's one reason why I video is because of that, you know. So that way, and when I'm long gone, they'll have plenty of memories.
Yep.
And that's your centerpieces for her wedding. It's made of plant.
There you go.
Well, and I love that you're burying them deep, because the tomato plant is one of the plants where it'll actually take roots right off of the stem.
Right.
And you get that much more root, so available nutrients going in. So
exactly.
Perfect.
All those little hairs on them, right? I generally use those bags. The roots can grow through the bags, right? But what I have found the past 2 years is that the bags claim to be biodegradable, and they are no longer biodegrading.
Oh,
so sometime between 2020 and 2022, they must have changed up the recipe or something, because when I planted them in 2020 and 2021, they biodegraded. There was no problem. I used them for my peppers. I used them for my tomatoes. The roots would grow through them. You wouldn't find them by the end of the season. They were gone. 2022, I planted them. And 2023, I planted using the same brand, same everything. And they were in the soil still by the end of the season, both years. So I quit using them. There's no need for me to buy something that's supposed to be biodegradable if it's not biodegrading. and, you know, having to pick it out of my soil. So I got rid of them, went back to just doing it the quick, easy way. My plants are in the ground. Those plants are ones that I sell. So I'm never going to see them again. They're going to be gone. You know, those were the extras. And because I plant usually, you know, if it's a 6 cell, I'll plant probably 12 seeds per 6 cell or whatever. And whatever's left over extra, I just sell them, you know, try to make a little extra money. Usually let the kids keep it and, you know, use it for vacation whenever we take them on vacation or whatever. So I got a standing deal with them. You help me in the garden. Whatever you sell, you keep, you know, whether it's produce or plants, you keep the money, and you just help me in the garden. That's all I ask. And you can spend the money on whatever you want. So it's been working out so far.
Well, and consider your kids having their hands in the dirt. The biology is going right through their skin into their bodies. And like, guys, the biology in the air itself, you're getting fed through your skin, just like the plant gets fed through its cell structure as well in the air. Like, you know, your wood smoke and wood vinegar that comes off of that smoke is actually beneficial for your plants as well. So there's so many things that we're just beginning to understand that can benefit not only the plants, but us too.
Right. Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about that in a little bit with the biochar. So, with the wood smoke, the wood vinegar. Okay, so we're going to show Ken's site right now. So it's all about the biology. And I love how the background here are the soil matters, the passion within, the OG's power hour, garden song, well, everything you have there, conversations with Ken. But I like how it's set up. Absolutely love that.
It's, if you go there, go to the playlist and you'll see all the different podcasts. What you're seeing a lot is I did a lot of broken down pieces of the different shows that we've done, just taking clips to help generate more interest. But there you'll see, you know, some we were on season 1, season 2, season 3.
Yeah, I'm about to dive deep into that tonight.
Soil matters.
Right, absolutely.
It's very true, right?
Very.
Who does the thumbnails?
I do.
Awesome
good job.
Really good. That's one thing I haven't done.
I use Canva. It makes it really easy because I do my background and then all I'm doing is adding a title, an image, etc. And it's the same background all the time. And it makes it quick and simple. I can do one of those in 5 minutes. And I do different sizes. I do one for Instagram. I do one for Anchor because they want it square. And then, of course, the normal YouTube one. But yeah, Canva is really easy.
I'm going to go over and follow you on Instagram too real quick.
Yep. And I've got 2 channels on Instagram, my own Ken Somerville, and then it's all about the biology tour on Instagram.
So is there something I could play quick, like 2 or 3 minutes in one of these videos that you think will be, they're all very educational, but just want to show?
Yeah, well, we were talking about Dr. Faust, so that was Monday's show. If you want to click on that, you'll see the gentleman that created the BioAg products.
Okay, so I'm going to just show 2 or 3 minutes so you guys get a glimpse of this. Let me get through the commercial quick.
We can't save you from getting tagged in a wipeout.
Silly Lily.
But we can save you big.
Go around and how we can
there's the late
be more efficient, and actually how we can turn around global warming returns and you know, that kind of thing. It's not a way to manage stuff. It's like a different mentality, thought. It's not going to save the planet Earth. It's not managing a system. It's managing someone's idea of wealth. So they can have an elite family and live in like Bezos or people like that, Elon Musk, and people, and all through history, I got to have a castle. No, I got to have another palace and a castle, and I need a couple more yachts. it's all bullshit you don't need. I mean, but those people and they're what they want and what they're doing. I mean, they got some problem emotionally or mentally or something. That's wrecking it for the rest of us.
Well, it's the greed, unfortunately. It gets contagious. It's addictive. The more you have, the more you want. It's never enough. And very few people get to a point where they go, I have enough that I can't even use or see. What have I accomplished? And that's the aha moment. But unfortunately, very few people get to that kind of.
You're going to like eat it, right? What happens with wine? You don't have to add anything. It's going to turn into alcohol, right? So sugar is just going to turn to alcohol. It's going to release some CO2, yes. But if you use humic substances, monosilicic acid, all the things I just got done talking about, that causes the plant to produce more sugars. And the excess sugars are released by the root system, and it helps all those microorganisms and fungi that live in the root zone to protect the plant and feed it.
And it's the right type of sugar going into the system.
The right type of sugar that gets utilized and not just broken down by a yeast, because it's right there in the root zone.
Yeah.
And so, I think people got pissed off at me by, what I was doing, because I was going against like a university professor that was gave a speech before me, and he was talking about, adding sugar to your starter mix and all that. And then they made the mistake of asking me what I thought.
Okay.
I like that dude, man.
Oh yeah.
Not all professors out there, they think they know everything.
Oh yeah.
Not all.
Well, they put blinders on and only know what they're allowed to know, and that's really what he was talking about. Is there's so much knowledge out there that's being hidden by the universities, by the people teaching, because they just simply don't want to learn anything new, right? Because they'd have to rewrite the textbooks and redo all this, and our education system is really foobarred for this stuff because it's all paid for by big ag. Like in the movie that you were showing at the very beginning, it's all controlled by the people with the money, and it's not for our benefit in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's to kill us. Can I talk about what we had talked about earlier, like after the show the other day, whenever I'd mentioned like the Social Security and all that stuff? Can I talk about that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So now everybody put your tinfoil hat on for just a minute, okay? Because this is going to sound completely wild, but I did some reading, and I don't quote me on the numbers because I can't remember. It's been a little while ago since I had read, but it was like 37% of the money that was paid into Social Security. All right. 37% of those people died before they ever got Social Security. They were fully paid into Social Security, but they died, heart attack, cancers, whatever, right? Worked from the time they were probably 18 or 24, somewhere around in there, until they were in their 50s and 60s, when, let's face it, we're no longer usable people when we're 50 and 60 years old, right? I mean, not to them, we're not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the likelihood of you getting cancer at 50 and 60, from what I was reading, is dramatically higher than whenever you're 40, 30, 20, right? Not that you can't get it, not that you won't get it. It's just at a higher rate. Now, why is that? Could it be the food that we eat? That they're feeding us this all along until we get to a point that we're no longer useful to them. Then we contract a cancer, that then we die. Then they get to keep all the Social Security money that we had paid into for all those years, right? Now, again, you have to put your tinfoil hat on to kind of see the whole picture. But if you think about it, it does kind of make sense what I was reading. And when I read that, it really hit me in the gut. I was like, this makes sense, because a lot of the people I know, they were perfectly fine, healthy people, supposedly, until they got in their 50s and 60s. And now they're sick, they're dying, they got cancer, they got this, they got that. And food is literally curing them. Literally curing them, helping them. Because whenever I started saying, hey, I think we need to change the way we eat, I think maybe we should start eating mushrooms more, or different types of these adaptogenic mushrooms, different types of, root crops, different this, different that, greens, etc. We started feeling better. They started feeling better. Everything started changing, right? But then when they go to their doctor and they're like, well, it's time for another radiation treatment. Oh, I don't want it. What do you mean you don't want it? Well, I've been eating this, this, and this and taking mushrooms. You're doing what? You need to get off the quack juice and get back on the radiation. Why? Because it makes them money, right?
Yep.
It's all about that. It's all about their greed. So if they can feed us stuff that's good for us until it's no longer good for us, right? Never being good for us to begin with. Then when we catch something, get something, whatever it is that you want to call it, cancer, whatever, then they make more money off of us, all along keeping all the money they've made, because not only did they keep the 37% of those people that they kept their Social Security because they died before they ever got to collect it, but also think about all the money you pay in taxes, not just the federal and state tax that you pay, but then all the taxes that you pay when you go out to buy gasoline, food, and all this other stuff. 50% of your paycheck's already gone in taxes. So it's all about the money in every way, shape, or form. And the only way that we can truly fix it is by eating better, feeding our soil, which feeds our plants, which then feeds us and makes us healthy, happier people, and takes the control out of their hands.
Well, think of the soil food web, and it's the money food web. Right. And the more unhealthy you are, the more they make on medications, the more the doctors pay them.
Absolutely.
To get their kickbacks, etc. It's a vicious cycle, but we're learning as a species. You look at what's happening around the world, the change is happening right now. And I'm just so happy to see more and more people understanding, that they do have control of their own health through what they're consuming.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And you feel so much better. And I've seen people help their depression, help their anxiety. So it's not just physical things that you're helping when you eat better. It's everything, spiritually, mentally, physically. Your whole body begins to heal and change when you eat better food.
Yeah.
And it all starts when you put your hands in the dirt and your feet in the dirt, in the soil.
Right. Yep. Grounding. That's a literal thing. Going out barefoot and grounding yourself to the earth.
Mm-hmm. And that's like, I don't know if you guys have ever looked at redox potential, but it's the energetic flow in our soil structures and in everything around us. And if you're not grounding, and if you're not connecting with the energy from source, from the sunlight, from the soils, you're missing a component out of your system that you need to have health. If you're not going out in the daylight and getting a certain amount of those photons on your body and through your eyes, you're not making the components your body needs for health.
Right. That's why people who work night shift are so groggy and dysfunctional, because of they're not getting out in the sun as much.
Yep. And don't forget, you go out in the sun, you have to put all this stuff on your body.
No, you don't. Go out there naturally.
If you want chemicals,
right?
If you want cancer, put those shit on your body, because that's all it's gonna do.
Exactly. Yeah, my dad, he has several different types of melanoma that he's had to fight through, right? And he's like, he was telling me, son, you should take better care of your skin there and put that stuff on. I said, Daddy, God made me the way I'm supposed to be. I'm allowed to go out just like I am with nothing on me. Well, you better cover up a little more. I don't want you catching this bad stuff. I said, I understand that, but I ain't going to catch nothing. I ain't gonna catch nothing. I'm gonna be perfectly fine. God made me how I'm supposed to be. I can be out here in the sunlight. I'm perfectly fine. It might burn me a little bit, but I'm gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Yep. But I noticed I don't burn nearly as bad whenever I got off of the food I was eating. Mm-hmm. My skin don't burn nearly as bad. I can be burnt in the evening and wake up the next morning and be tan. Yeah, just like I am right now. I was red the first time, went to bed, woke up the next day, and I'm tan. Right? Change what you eat. If your skin is nothing but a huge organ, so what do you think it's going to react the same way that your insides are acting?
Yeah. Well, if you consider in the history of our planet, each time that our planet learned, or the biology and plants learned how to use photons from our sun more effectively, is when the different ages changed on our planet. Okay. So when at the very beginning, the microbiology that existed then, while there was no oxygen for one, it was all different components, and it couldn't use the photons from the sun very efficiently. That's why the first plants, like your Venus flytrap, had to consume protein from a different source. It had to get those components because the soil biology was not interacting very well with the plants. It was trying to consume the plant, wasn't helping the plant. Now the species we have on our planet, you can put, mycorrhizae into your soil systems, and it will attach and communicate with the biology in the plant and the soil structure. Back in the day, that wasn't there. So every time it learned to do more with the photons of energy that it was getting from the sun, we had a new generation of biology, a new generation of plants. And, I don't know what your religious beliefs are, but however that the biology got started on our planet, we're a construct of biology, our physical forms. Yep. Who we are, our energy, our essence, our soul is an energetic thing. Like they're seeing now with Correllian photography, all of the energy that is surrounding both us, the plants, and they've learned, like I know Leighton Morrison was talking about a white paper that he found where a person walking into their garden, the plants would recognize the color of shirt that they had on.
That's cool, isn't it?
That's the energy that exists.
And that's awesome. And that goes back to talking about vibrations, frequencies, and all sorts of different things like that are also beneficial to plant health and our health.
Yeah. Well, energy, frequency, vibration. Nikola Tesla had it right. And that he didn't think of that. That's from back thousands and thousands of years ago. They understood so much more than we do today. And we're just relearning what was already there. And in learning that, our brains are going, oh my God, why didn't we know this?
Right.
Because they didn't want us to understand.
Exactly.
This. Yeah.
So I do have a couple questions, unless you got some, Joe.
No, go ahead. You guys are doing great.
I don't want
Joe's working.
I don't want to take it over. I don't want to make it.
No. This is awesome. I love it.
So I'm a giant grower. Everybody knows that, So I've never been able to grow a tomato over 3 pounds. And I was kind of looking at what I was growing. I got very, very heavy clay, dense, heavy clay. It's hard to kind of grow in that because everything kind of gets, the oxygen doesn't really flow inside the clay very well. It gets compacted and stuff. It's very hard to grow in it. Yeah. So what I did this year is I got some 3 foot, I think they're 36 inch or 38 inch tall raised beds. And I filled them up with goat manure and goat bedding because I'll throw the hay over there into their barn.
Yeah.
And they'll eat it and then they'll stomp on it. And then the next day I take and throw more, they'll eat it and stomp on it. So it turns into their bedding, they'll eat and then they'll poop on it, whatever. Right. So I take all that out every 2 weeks. I go in there, clean it all out. And I had this huge pile of it. And I thought, I'm going to use that to fill my raised beds. Okay. And there was a thought process behind it. And so I filled it up probably more than 3/4 of the way full of goat manure and bedding. And then I topped it off with some really good finished off compost, very good stuff, which you've seen in the World Barrel on that little clip there. And then I planted my tomato plants in it. The thought was this: I'm going to have microbes. I'm going to have food source deep down in there for the tomatoes to grab, right? They're going to be able to get that. The other thing that I'm going to have is some CO2 leakage that's going to eventually come up from the bottom up through the soil slowly. And when those plants are fully out and canopied, that canopy will slow the CO2 down a little bit, and the leaves are going to be able to grab some of that up. Okay. Now, there is a guy who lives out in, I think, Washington or Oregon, who grew an 18-pound tomato last year. Biggest one on the face of the earth ever grown that we know of. Okay.
Right.
18. I mean, you can think of a basketball. That's how big this tomato was. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so some of what I've seen with giant growers is this need to feed the plants CO2 via tanks of CO2. And they'll put a canopy over the plant of some sort, right? And they'll turn these on with little hoses, and they'll feed them CO2. I'm sure pot growers do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You can't really do that unless you have some sort of a hoop house or something like that.
Yeah, enclosed.
Right. But what I was thinking is and just humor me for this, what if I do have some CO2 coming from, we know compost breaking down makes CO2. So we're going to have some CO2. But what if I was to pipe in a couple tubes under that raised bed, turn some CO2 on to magnify what I've already got there, and let it naturally come up through the layers and stuff and hit those plants? Would that change anything? Yes or no, or do you not know?
I would say that you should just because the CO2 is breathed in through the plant stomata, as far as I understand.
Right.
So in an enclosed cannabis environment, they're looking at around 1,300 parts per million. Generally speaking, we don't have near that in an exterior environment.
Right.
You're not going to get near that coming up through the soil structure. Now, running it through the soil, you're a part of that carbon is going to be used by the biology. I don't know if it would really be that much of a benefit.
Right.
Running it up through the soil as just allowing it to be there. But I do know, as you said, CO2 is a natural, is naturally released in the decomposition process. If you're trying to get the extra growth like they do in the cannabis industry, then they're feeding the plant the excess CO2
directly,
and it's the carbon molecules that it's really grabbing. Like you wanted to talk about biochar.
Yep.
And though that is an organic carbon, we have to consider in the biology, and these components live in all the different phases of our environment, whether that's air, water, and the soil and subsoil systems. So the only reason that you're using that carbon is to get the excess. So I would actually experiment if you have the capability of doing a side-by-side, do one with it coming up through the soil, do one where it's monitoring or maintaining a certain amount, and there's sensors that you can buy that will actually turn your tank on to maintain that. You don't want to do it at night. You only want to do that during the light cycle or when the sun is out.
Okay.
At night, you want to turn it off. But I would be very interested to in what would happen with that experiment.
Well, I actually do have, because what I did, I got 2 raised beds, pretty much the same square footage, not the same size, but they're the same square footage. So and they're side by side, literally butt in to butt in. So I can do that experiment side by side, and literally, I would just have to build a small hoop house for the one. The only thing is it gets so hot during the day trying to keep it enclosed during the daytime when it's so hot, because I know it'll get 100 here. So in a greenhouse that would be at well over 140.
Easy.
Yeah. And I don't know that it wouldn't kill the tomato plants. So
I wouldn't say that you could, unless you put a lot of shade cloth on,
right?
You're gonna have a temperature problem. You'd pretty much have to do it in a totally enclosed environment where you're controlling the vapor pressure deficit, you're controlling the temperature, the humidity, everything in an indoor environment. So if you're doing a hoop house, you're going to want to have a water wall where you have fans blowing in fresh air and keeping the moisture content higher. I would say, like myself, for when I was growing the cannabis, in Canada, I can't grow outside. So I had to use an enclosed environment. And then I was able to control the temperature outside. I don't know that it would really work that well, but that's for you to decide, my friend.
That would be it will be some fun. I may have to play around with that this summer, because I want to have the state record and it's like 7 pound 0.25 ounces or something like that. So I want to beat that this year. But going back to the biochar, I started using biochar last year, and as I was telling Joe, everything that I grew with biochar doubled or almost tripled in size from the year before. Okay. That made me a believer of biochar. In conjunction with mycorrhiza, azos, lactobacilluses, you have got the perfect marriage, in my opinion, to grow something phenomenal. And you don't have to be growing giants. You don't have to be trying to break records or anything like it. You will have the best looking and healthiest tomato plants and best tasting tomatoes you ever ate just off of those combinations right there. I noticed less disease pressure, less pest pressure. The soil this year is starting to look better. I just made a video today where I dug every year when I go to transplant my giant pumpkins. I'll dig, at least a 3 by 4 by 2 foot deep hole. Okay. So 3 foot wide, 4 foot by 4 foot wide by, 2 foot deep. And I will fill that hole up with compost and last year used biochar and then mix in my biologics and then transplant those plants into that hole. This year, when I dug the hole out, I had 8 to 10 inches of really good looking soil before I hit the clay. That's just a bottomless pit of compacted nonsense. Okay. And I was like, man, look at the color difference now. Like before, there was no real color difference in the past years, right? 2020, 21, 22, 23, no real color difference. This year, a 2 foot hole, you can see 8 to 10 inches of really good color, nice, good, healthy soil that's, been combined with whatever you want to call it, with those clay molecules. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you see that down and I'm like, okay, it's happening. It's slow, but it's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to see how much further this will go, because I absolutely despise growing in clay now after having grown in it for this many years. It is the thorn in my side. I know it's good for holding water. I know it's good for holding nutrients, but outside of that, it sucks to grow in, The other thing,
if you're digging that hole, make sure that you're piercing that clay, whether it's with a broad fork or something like that. You consider you're creating a bowl where water is not going to penetrate through, and you can literally drown your plant.
That's very true. That's very true. And so what I did was I took the broad fork and I went into the walls of that with a broad fork, and then I went around it with the broad fork, deeply penetrating down deep as I could get around that hole. Yeah, so I love broad forking. Broad forking is an absolute must, especially if you grow in clay soils. You must have one because it helps a lot. Now, what I thought was very cool is I found roots 2 foot deep that were from last year's pumpkin roots that were held still in that clay. And I was like, well, at least I know my pumpkin roots made it this deep, you know, like, so I was pretty shocked, you know, to say the least, but then pretty happy because I know that they're penetrating. Now what I want to ask is, you had mentioned sand as well too earlier. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, if you got clay, you need to, you know, mix sand in there. The sand will help and everything. And then I've heard other people say, oh, well, it'll make brick out of it. You don't want to do that, you know. Now I have added sand only because I've wanted to play around with it some and see. And I also put sand in the patch to grow the pumpkins on, because you don't want to just grow them on flat soil, they'll rot. So the question here is if you're growing in clay, okay, what do you want to see? And well, first off, what do you want to do to try to help that clay? And then what do you want to see in the upcoming years to know that you're doing the right thing to make that clay a usable substance or substrate to grow in, rather?
Well, you're doing it already, actually, by seeing the root penetrating the clay. It's actually moving the clay molecules apart and allowing the roots to go through. So you're slowly going to break up and use that clay. And considering sand, silt, and clay, it's just particle size. So a compacted clay, your molecules are laying flat. Okay. As you add the biology, etc., they're actually going to end up being as H's. Okay. So that's where your nutrients are going to be, your water is going to be as that soil structure develops. So the sand will hit that. Yes, definitely you want a certain amount of sand. A third is generally a good thing. So if you've got 1 pound of clay, put a third of that pound in sand and mix it together. That's going to help break it up. It's not going to recongeal into that flat, molecule and molecule on top of each other.
Right.
And if you understand CEC, the electronic exchange capacity, clay is a lot higher on that than other components. But doing the broad forking, allowing the moisture and the biology. Remember, the biology that lives in that clay is your anaerobic biology. So if you want to put, a fish in the very bottom, you're going to get that biology as long as you don't wash off the fish.
Okay.
Yep. On the outside of a fish, it has what's called biofilm, which we have in our soils. That's actually the second stomach of a fish, because they're drawing nutrients in from the water around them, and their biology is breaking that down and feeding it into the biology inside of the fish. That's one of the reasons that I recommend, the swamp water, because it's going to have that anaerobic water biology, and that's the first biology that came onto land. So that's your foundational biology. But by mixing in the sand, you're allowing the biology to mine that sand. And consider that 1 grain of sand, has enough calcium in it to feed 1 acre of a tomato field.
Wow.
All the calcium needs, but it needs the biology to break it down. And it's a slow process. That's why we additionally do foliar feeding, soil drenches with the calcium as well, to add it, make it easier, broken down already for the biology to use. You're converting your clay soils into a voluptuous soil, something that's open and airy, where air can penetrate, where moisture can penetrate, and where when you pour a biological extract onto your soil, it can flow down into all the different levels of your substrate. So you're converting your substrate into a more humus, volume of soil. Now, the one thing, like, I know there's a lot of people that are no-till or less till, etc. The more that you can do that, the better. And I'll explain why. In soil, we have what's called aggregation. And that's what you want to see in soil. You want those clumps built together. Consider how long it takes for these little things that you can't see to take those particles and make them into a civilization. Because
Right.
that's what that really is. That's what biochar really is as well. I don't know if you guys have ever ran across the term quorum sensing.
Worm sensing?
Quorum sensing.
Oh, no.
Okay. QUORAM, something like that. Quorum. Basically, what Dr. David Johnson from the Johnson Sioux bioreactor, when I was watching some of his university presentations, he mentioned quorum sensing. And basically what it is the biology gets together in enough of a volume of life that it can literally create biology and substances that aren't in your soil. Okay, so the example that I ran across probably 10, 12 years ago when I was looking at doing what you are, growing tomatoes, the scientists in the experiment had stripped the boron out of the soil. Now, tomatoes have to have boron for health. If they don't have it, they're not going to be a healthy plant. So they stripped the boron out, they planted the tomato, it never really developed. It survived, it lived, it went through its entire cycle, it had very small fruit, was never really healthy. But yet when they tested the soil at the end of the experiment, they found boron. So the biology had literally come together, created the necessary biology that went out, mined the soil that they had in that plant, broke the components out of the soil structure, and put them into the proper, configuration to make the boron atoms.
That's insane.
Okay. That's quorum sensing. So your biochar, because it's a non-organic, okay, you have organic, now I'm having another brain fart. Organic nitrogen, organic, etc. It's not nitrogen, carbon. Yeah, organic carbon, which your plant can use, your biology can use. Then you have an inorganic, and that's what your biochar is. They found in Terra Preta that is thousands of years old. This biochar is still there and has not broken down. But because of that, the biochar is a safe haven for the biology. Okay. An aggregate is not safe for your biology. Okay. Because you can have a worm go through it and eat that biology, interrupt the University of Alexandria that's been created there, all this knowledge, where in the biochar, it's safe from that type of an attack, and you can get this quorum sensing happening. Now, I wouldn't ever go over about 2% biochar personally, but I know people that have up to 20% biochar. Exactly. So you're just getting that much more. Is it necessary to have that much? Perfectly honest with you, I'm not sure. I don't know. But if you look at Terra Preta, where the idea of biochar came from, these places in the Amazon where they're finding this soil that's 20, 30 feet deep that literally regrows itself because they can harvest off the top and give it 2 years and it's back up to the same level it was. So it's literally creating its own lignin, which is what everything is based on. And that's what oil is based on, coal is based on. It's all lignin. In the development of our planet, it started out as coal. The excess lignin was drawn together. You had coal. As our planet developed, the next stage of that lignin was oil. Okay. So it is a constant thing that our planet produces, this lignin, and using it is a different way of, developing life in your soil, where your soil literally, you don't have to add anything anymore. It just recreates what is necessary from the structure, and it's grabbing from the air, from the roots, from anything that falls on top of it. It's recreating this lignin, and all of a sudden you have a soil system where you don't have to add anything into the system. It's there. And in the Amazon, in these plots of terra preta, when I looked at that and I researched, probably, 50, 60 hours on terra preta, what I found is in the overviews, the aerial views of the areas, you could literally see channels that the natives there had created for flooding to grow their crops. They had massive cities of millions of people. What do you need first in a city? When you bring all those people together, you create garbage, you create your own feces, etc. What are one of the best ways to get rid of any type of smell like that?
Composting.
Charcoal. So are those actually the city dump? That's where you have broken crockery. What would happen to your night soils if the pot, got a crack in it? Well, you ain't going to keep it. You're going to throw it in the garbage dump.
Right.
And you're going to throw in, this charcoal to cut the smell. That's what cannabis growers were using when everything was illegal. They'd run the air through a charcoal filter so that when it came out the other side, you didn't have the odors from the cannabis. So in my research, that I figured that, these were just garbage dumps. When the people passed away, weren't able to maintain them. They just developed over thousands of years with quorum sensing, having the different crockery, all these different components that human people had put in. And face it, human manure is one of the best manures on the planet if you're not taking any chemicals, if you're not eating any processed food, because if you're doing that, well, you're getting those contaminants. But nowadays they're everywhere anyway, but it has to have a lot longer breakdown period. But they were putting their manures in there, and you've got this terra preta that has been developed over the thousands of years since Cortez. I think it was Cortez that went through there, and they figured that, he brought smallpox, malaria, etc., wiped out these people that didn't have any way to fight those diseases. These cities in the jungle got overgrown, and we found, 1,000 years later, these sections were that they call terra preta.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Now I have a question, and
sure.
This goes off Jay Dixon's question with how to add fish and not attract animals. If you add your biochar, would that take care of the fish smell?
Yes, it is definitely going to capture this fish smell. But if you're going to use a fish, and I know, the wife's uncle used to do this all the time in his potato patch. Every third hole, he would put a fish in the bottom of the hole, but then he'd cover it with dirt. One of the ways that you can harm your plants is to have too much nitrogen instantly available. And that's what you're going to get from that fish, is a lot of nitrogen, as well as other components, and the biology. So he would put the fish in, cover it with a layer of soil, then plant on top of it. There was no way for the odors to come up into the environment where animals would come and dig up the fish to eat it as it decomposes. Nowadays, we have different ways of getting that, like a company like Fish Brew squid juice, I think it's called, has another one. And there's different ways of breaking fish down. There's hydrolysate and can't remember the other way, but there's two different ways. One is better than the other, and more odor as well. But there's different ways that you can, amend with fish. You can throw it in your compost. Just make sure it's buried deep in the compost so it doesn't get the odor where you're attracting rats, etc. Or have it in, an area where you have hardware cloth or the wire mesh at a very small size that the animals can't get into, but still bury it under the surface so it's covered so that you don't have the odors.
Okay, guys, it's been 2 hours. That was quick.
I can keep going. I've got tons of other questions.
I'll have to come on to one of your podcasts, brother.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely.
And I'll come back on with Joe. I missed Corky. I didn't get a chance to meet Corky yet.
She's gonna love you. We definitely got to have you on again because this is. I love talking about this. I know all my questions and work. It's just coming back next time. It's all good.
I'm sorry,
I still got Ryan's all my notes and stuff. I'm like, well, I can use this next time too.
My bad, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, this is great.
What?
I love this.
I would love to come back on and share more anytime that you want to have me back on.
I really appreciate that, guys. I'm speechless now.
Andy Lopez says he'd love to come on too. I would be happy to come on. Well, and he knows he's been doing this since 72, guys. So, he has a lot more information as well. And he's written, like I said, over 20 books, and he knows a lot of the guys that we follow that wrote these books. He's been dealing with these people for years because they're of an age. And they're all friends. They're all in the organic movement together. So, yeah, we're going to actually be doing remineralization tomorrow. And we're going to have a couple of links for PDFs for people as well. That'll be in the show description for tomorrow. He's already told me we're doing this tomorrow. I'm 104 years old. No, you're not, Andy.
Well, it's not bad being 104.
Right. I hope I make it to 104.
We'll definitely make this a bigger chat and make it maybe a little longer chat too. If you guys can do a little more than 2 hours.
I think
really
3 hours.
Appreciate coming on and talking to you guys. This is my passion. This is my goal in life, is to share this information with as many people as humanly possible. And the more times I come on to other people's shows and interact with their audience, it's just that much better. Remember, on the other side, you had the quote of however you grow, whatever you grow, just grow. On the other one, it says one lit candle can light many without ever diminishing its own light. You guys are lit candles, and just keep talking about this, and everybody needs to become that lit candle and will become a flame that they can't fight against. We're just going to burn them up and just roll over them.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you everybody in the chat. This is great. Everybody coming together. It's all about we, it's not about I. And the
That's
more
right.
we talk about it, the more people come together, the more we all grow.
That's right.
And that's what needs to happen into society is we need to change mindsets. So.
Exactly. Yep. And teach people it's all about the biology.
It is.
It's all about the biology. Exactly.
Okay, thanks for chat. You guys were amazing. I was trying to follow it, but yeah, you guys are amazing. Amazing channel.
Yes, absolutely.
You guys just stay on for 1 second when I end the stream.
Sure.
Take care, everyone. Thank you so much, and hope you guys follow all the links to Mod sent, and let's learn together. Take care.